Well, hey, welcome to another live stream. And I'm super excited to have a good friend of mine, Awana Missionary from Mississippi and part of Tennessee. And I was just down at his house a few weeks ago. This is my friend TJ Sipes. He's been a missionary for 23 years, something like that.
Yep.
And been involved in Awana longer than that. So we're just going to have some fun, talk about Awana. And hey, so our topic is how to have a great kickoff meeting. Some of you are getting ready to start here in the next week or two. Some are starting in September. I was just talking to TJ. Some are getting ready to start here the first week of August. So this kickoff meeting is very timely for us to talk about this. Yeah. And there's some of our clubs. Hey, Awana starts the 13th or 14th of August. We'll see you there. Maybe that's not such a good strategy. So I'm going to talk about two meetings. So let's just say club starts on your Wednesday night. I would say 2 weeks before that, and I would always like to do it on a club night. We'd have our directors meeting. So we'd have our Cubby director, our Sparks director, and so on. And then the things we'd cover, I'm just going to go over a couple things, and I'll ask TJ what he thinks. We'd go over the calendar. So if I'm the ministry director, I might have already done that correct calendar, or we might collaborate on the calendar, but we want to go over the calendar, kind of get that in concrete. Talk about any problems I had last year, either people showing up on time, if there might have been discipline problems, if there might have been communication with the church, whatever problems there could have been, let's review that. If there's any changes for the schedule for the night, in other words, hey, we're going to, instead of starting at 6, we're starting at 6:30. Instead of starting with games, we're going to start with whatever. Let's talk about that. And then we're going to talk about, I want to talk to the club directors because the next week we're planning an all leaders meeting. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to ask those club directors to train their leaders.
Sure.
And so I'm going to talk to those, hey, this is your responsibility, and we're going to allow some time and so on and so forth. And then maybe the last thing would be we maybe want to take some time to pray together. And so, yeah, so that's the director's meeting. That's the first sort of kickoff meeting. What do you got, TJ?
So at that meeting, I would probably, I've always tried to get our leaders, once we know what the leaders' names are, put them in a list. We would, especially at the prayer time, we would put a little bowl together, everybody's name in the bowl, pull a name out, and that's going to be our prayer partner, silent partner, so to speak. And then we'll reveal it at Christmas time whenever we have our get together.
Hey, explain that again.
So I take everybody's name and put it down on a piece of paper. We throw it in a bowl, and you just pull a name out, and don't get your own, obviously. Pull a name out, and you're going to be praying for them until we reveal at our Christmas party. We always had a Christmas party with the kids, but we also, as leaders, would get together with them. So we would reveal that night, and if you wanted to have a little happy at Christmas time, you could do that or something like that. But it was a way to get everybody kind of connected together through prayer. Really asking them to commit to serving the 28 to 32 weeks of Awana, but not to you, not to the pastor, but to the Lord. And so, because sometimes things will happen and in our lives, we get busy, family situations arise. And sometimes we feel, just to be honest, Satan tries to beat us up, and we feel a little bit unworthy of being able to be in there sometimes. And so rather than just jumping out of the ministry, I've always asked ours, hey, just sign a commitment card that you're going to serve 28, 32 weeks, however long we're going to have it. And that if at any point in time you need to pray about backing out for another reason, something have job change or family dynamics, then you've taken that time to pray about it before just jumping out. So, yeah, that's some of the things that
or somebody, maybe somebody has a personality conflict.
Could be.
And rather than just bailing, hey, you're asking them to pray a couple weeks and go, right. Hey, before you really pull the plug on this, would you really pray about it? And if the Lord's pulling you away, great. But if really seek the Lord on that.
I mean, it could be you're going to school, you got a kid that's got something going on at school, you just need more time with them. Starting time, you mentioned that some could be starting as early as August. years ago, back in the 90s, when I first became an Awana leader, and then they asked me to be Awana commander. We had an opportunity. Now we're going to be leading it. So training is important. I think we need to be trained well ourselves. And I could not have found that out any easier than my late wife, who took the test. She got a 94. I took the test. I didn't study for it. I got a 65. I had to go back and study for it. Once I studied for it, I got a 98. But so we need to know what to do. But when you're going to be training them to start, August is pretty early. So we got to a point where we started pushing it out to the first Wednesday or Sunday after Labor Day. That gave parents an opportunity to work with their kids, get them back on a bedtime schedule. They've been up all summer long. Maybe they're in school now for a couple of weeks, so they're going to want to invite some friends pretty quickly afterwards. Homework for the first time in a different grade level. Who is picking on me at school? Susie's this and Billy's that. So all that kind of stuff can go away or settle in. Then we get started with our Awana ministry, so the kids are ready and primed, ready to go.
We like to have our first night at club before it starts snowing. So sometime in September.
I can say without any doubt, we have the first night before it snows in Mississippi, Louisiana.
Hey, I put up there Awana Basics, the online Awana Basics. Right. Are some of your clubs using that? What's the kind of the?
So many of them are. I talked with a fellow today that, he was at a church for 16 years that had Awana in Florida. He kind of knew what he was doing. He was going to go in there with the books that he had. We've got, little roll books that they can use to train out of. We've got, the pocket guides that they can use to go out of. And they have a training on awanabasics.org. If they go to that and they enter their name into what is called My Awana, they get to see the back side, the full side of the training. On the front side, without their email in there, they can see a few things, a few minutes of each of the style trainings that we have. Puggles and Cubbies and Sparks, TNT Trek Journey, Secretary, Game Director, and then those are all 2-hour format. And then the person's going to be the Awana Ministry Director. They're running about a 3-hour training. So I would want them to get that done before they ask the others to do it.
So yeah, so to log into that thing, my.awana.org, and then if I were a ministry director or a club director, I would do that first to figure that out, because the leaders have to get an approval. There's a little, there's a little process to get in there. So ministry directors, club directors, I would go in there first. TJ talked about the Awana Basics, talked about roll books, talked about pocket guides. We have a club in Utah, and this lady, before she was ministry director, she was in the Air Force as a colonel and responsible for training. So she had this great thing. So I think the main thing is have a plan for training. So, and whatever that plan is, I mean, we provide some of those things, as Awana does. We provide some of those things. But if you have something better, go for it. But it's just do something.
Sure. Many of them have, many of them have been doing Awana for a long time. So they kind of do it the way that they've always done it, and some of the changes that take place, other leaders will. And that's why it's important for that Awana Ministry Director to take that training a week or two before that, so they kind of know what everyone's going to be looking at. They have a vision in their mind on how they want it to be done. Share that vision, cast that vision. But there may be some tweaking in there that they have to do once the people go through the training and they see, oh, wow, we should be doing this or could be doing that. Just kind of get those things worked out together ahead of time.
Yeah. I think it's cool about that too, is if you're club director, ministry director, if you go through the training, you're familiar with it. If you have one of your leaders say, hey, what about this? And you go, well, hey, go to page 3.
Yep.
On there, go to the page 3 on that certain training, and they'll tell you about it. So we start with that directors meeting. and go over the calendar, problems, review any changes, go for the schedule, the training, and the pray. And then the next week, we would have an all leader meeting. I'll just kind of talk about some of the things we've done. Is we would serve a meal, and then we would let people eat and kind of build. Everybody's kind of coming back from the summer and get a chance to everybody to talk. You don't want to just start slinging your
right.
Give them a chance to get to, build relationships, and then maybe the ministry director, pastor, maybe ask your pastor to come and thank the leader. Cast some bigger vision about, hey, why are we doing this? I always like to talk to the leaders about, hey, your efforts results in kids being in heaven someday. So thank you for coming and serving and all that kind of thing. And then maybe another thing I might talk about is child protection policies.
Yeah.
If you need to do any background checks, that might be the time to do it, where hey, this is how you do it. This is review any changes. If the week before you talked about any schedule changes, hey, we're not going to do games first. We're going to do large group time. If there's any changes, give people feel for that.
Are they going to have a bus ministry? I mean,
yeah, exactly. And then what I like to do is, when I was ministry director, is I let after that, and that might take 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then I would divide up the clubs.
Oh yeah.
Cubby, Sparks, TNT, and then let those club directors train their leaders and let them own their ministry. So, hey, you kind of, your posture with the Sparks director say is, hey, this is your ministry. How can I help you succeed? Instead of if you're the ministry director, telling them everything they need to do, give them some ownership, give that whole team, let that team build. And then they spend, 45 minutes to an hour kind of getting their act together and talking about games. And, hey, remember Billy was trouble? Well, we're going to do this with Billy this year. And, hey, remember we had that hiccup with, the large group time? Well, we got a new AV system, so we can use that. And everybody kind of, those teams build together, and then we would just dismiss after that. So all leader meeting. What do you got, TJ?
Just coming in with what's our game plan with parents? How are we going to drop these children off to the church safely? That comes to my mind. And really, how are we going to involve the parents this year? Because many of the parents are dropping their kids off. It's Wednesday. They already know what's at Sonic, and they're gone, or they're at Walmart, or they're just wanting some quiet time, and they're just sitting there scrolling on their phone instead of really being in the church and even becoming an Awana leader themselves. So they're just dropping the kids off, and that's fine. We don't mind babysitting for Jesus, but look, we got to have a plan, I think, to incorporate the parents into this so that they will be the disciple makers of their children. I mean, that's what God created these kids for them to do is to make them disciples. And so a lot of parents, Jeff, they don't know how. So maybe we could come up with a class, talk to the pastor. Maybe we have a class for the parents to come to, and we could teach them how to do that. Maybe that would help out. So I don't know. Any other ideas on that? I don't know what happened. I don't know if my internet is out or what. Well, I don't know if Jeff is out. I see it still says live, but yeah, that's some of the things that we've done. Trying to get the parents involved with the children each week. Maybe set up a Facebook page. Jeff, was that you went out or me?
That was me. Why don't you start over with the whole parent thing? I think the internet here is not great.
Okay.
So the whole thing went down.
I kind of jumped back in there a little bit there when I realized, I looked up and saw the live button going. I was like, okay, that's me. I can do this. So just getting with the parents and maybe perhaps setting up a Facebook group, maybe a chat group or something like that for each of the leaders. Or I just got to tell you, what happened with me was building the relationships with the kids. That's critical and important. Every single week, I called the kids that were in my portion of the club. I had 5 boys on my team, and I would talk to them. I talked to the mom and dad first. This is when the phone was hanging on the wall, Jeff. And I would talk to the parents first, and then I would say, Michael, how's it going? Michael was a little shy fella. He wanted 1 minute. You got Philip. Philip wanted 3 minutes. And then you got another one in there, 2 minutes. So in a 20-minute time frame, I've checked in with all 5 boys. And Jeff, that establishing that relationship, building on that relationship, fostering that relationship helped me to maintain that relationship for a lifetime. And not long ago, I had one I visited in the hospital. Guy's 38 years old. He's laying there with a broke back, 7 vertebra, and mask on because it was COVID time. He didn't know who I was until I handed him my prayer card. And all of a sudden, he was like a little boy that fell off the bike. And he's reaching up to me, and he's hugging me. And he said, Brother TJ, you told us that you'd always be there, and you always have. Those relationships carry for a lifetime. That's mentoring them for a lifetime. So,
I've been telling people lately is that ministry is not a noun, it's a verb.
Right. Exactly. Right?
Because we think we have our ministry and we boom, 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 but calling those people and then calling parents and then trying to talk to as it relates to this leader meeting, hey, how are we going to connect with parents? And maybe even asking the club directors, hey, do you have a text list? Do you have how are you going to manage that? How are you going to, encourage them to do that?
Jeff, some of the folks that we have that are leading, like here in Mississippi, just to be honest with you, Mississippi, Louisiana, and West Tennessee, some of them don't know how to use those apparatuses. They're just not equipped to do that. So having a little bit of time in your meeting with them so that they can get more familiar with how to do it, feel comfortable about doing those things. I think that's critical for them. And a lot of them, they've never been discipled, so they don't know how to disciple. So
I think too is that when you start at the beginning of the year, every year we have these intentions, and then it's sort of, life gets in the way and we quit calling them, and then the next thing you know, it's January, February, and we quit calling. So hey, let's restart, and not that we failed, but hey, let's just remind everybody, hey, let's get back to calling and doing the best we can, and how we reach out to parents. And, also, as it relates to that, to talk to your leaders, hey, as soon as club's over at whatever, 7:30, let's not rush to put the chairs away. Let's talk to people, and then we can put the chairs away. And that might be a good time to bring that up in the leader meeting. Now, having said that, some of them are in a hurry to get their kids home, and you don't want to push too hard, but you just want to encourage them to build relationships with their kids. So anyways, hey, you got anything else for leader meeting, director meeting? It's really important.
It's very important for them to be a part of it. Again, just the training and equipping them as best we can. There was something I was going to say, but it left me already. So again, timing of the year, getting that together, vision casting to the whole, getting in front of the whole church and saying, hey, we got 50 kids out here. We need leaders. I don't think that's the best model. I think we need to ask God, give me the names of the people that you want me to have on this team. If I'm leading this as ministry director, put their names on my heart, put their names on the hearts of the other leaders that we've entrusted to go out and ask, and then put our names on their hearts. So when we go to communicate with them, they're already listening. They're already hearing the Holy Spirit tugging at their heart. And they may say to you, man, I've never worked in Awana before. And, Jeff, one of the sweetest memories I ever had was a 92-year-old lady that stood up and shared the reason that she was working in Awana at that church. She said, I know that God has done a lot of things for me, and I hadn't done anything for him lately. Now, I may not be able to do everything in Awana, but surely there's got to be something that I can do. And man, would to God that we all had that, that thought process. So, she was just precious as she could be. So, think about that. Think. We may not ever walk up to a 92-year-old woman and ask her to come in and be a part of this. But if the Spirit moves us to do that, don't walk away from that ask.
Yeah. And the thing is, related to that recruiting, if we really believe that serving the Lord is the great honor, a great thing, that reaching kids is an important ministry, then we've got to believe that other people think that too. And maybe they're just waiting for us to ask. Maybe they're going, hey, it sounds like those Awana people got it all under control. I'm not going to ask. When the reality is you need help, and they're just waiting for you to ask. And if you ask, especially like you say, if you pray and ask God to put the right people in front of you, there might be people who go, yeah, that's your closer. So
I know what I was going to say. Find, in our repertoire of videos out there, there's some videos that we have out there that will help to inspire people to really kind of put a vision out there for the why we're doing this. Why are we doing this? And so, getting those leaders together and asking them, listen, I want you to close your eyes and think about people that you see every day. And this happened to me years ago with the trainer that I had. When I opened my eyes, I honestly didn't see children in that people vision. Because one day they'll be people, but they really were the most important people to Jesus. And so having that vision cast to see the importance of why we're doing what we're doing, maybe that'll help them to stick to it a little bit more. And the other thing, I'll be honest with you, I want them working in the handbook. You asked me what would I do for my leaders? I would let them know. I want you working in the handbook with the kids, all right? Because I want them to memorize the Bible verses, because they're going to hear it week after week after week. So they're already leaps and bounds ahead of the other kids. The other thing is, you mentioned something about the kids, falling behind on column or anything like that. Accountability, having the kids that, if you have a scoring system that they brought their book, they brought the Bible, brought the dues, whatever you have, if you have an accountability to how did your leader contact you this week, let me tell you who's going to want you contacting them week after week. And
yes,
that'll
build you know what? We did that a couple times where we at our we would have everybody at the game, square. Hey, raise your hand if your leader. You get 100 points if your leader called you this week.
Yep.
Right. And then the kids were like, Mr. Sipes, please call me. Mr. Sipes, are you going to call me this week? Are you going to call me?
Right.
And and those kids, man, it's a real joy. And like you say, building long-term relationships. Back, that 38-year-old guy, 20 something years ago.
Yeah.
He was just like Billy you see in your club today. He was, and so these young children are going to grow up to be the pastors and the missionaries and the deacons and elders and moms and dads. And so viewing that way that we're building the church of 2050, we're just not there for childcare. And so they can have a midweek ministry. Great. If that's what the church wants for us to do that, great. But we're really building the church of 2050. A couple of years ago, I was down in the Navajo res, and I was talking to this pastor, and he said to me, he says, the Navajo church will become great when old men plant trees whose shade they'll never sit under. And, a lot of the fruit from the ministry happening now, TJ and I, we won't see it. But if we don't plant those seeds, there won't be a harvest. And so just reminding your leaders of that, reminding them of the importance of children's ministry, reminding them of their role in that and their key role in that is a great way to start the kickoff. And so it's not like just a mechanical thing like, hey, here's where we put sign this section, and here, we don't even know all that stuff, and here's where you put the 100 points down. All that stuff needs to be handled, but that's kind of secondary to we're reaching kids for eternity. And so anyways, hey, thanks a bunch, TJ. And if you guys need any questions about this, let me know. Email me, call me, and I'm sure if in Mississippi, Louisiana, or West Tennessee, you'd be TJ would be happy to talk to you about that. And thanks again for all you're doing, and hope you have a great year. And we'll see y'all soon.
Thanks.
Wait a minute. We got some great ideas here. Cool.
Thanks for inviting me, man.
Yes, you bet.